This is a continuation of 11.2, surface areas of prisms and cylinders. Here we have theorem 11.1, it's lateral and surface areas of a prism. The lateral area of a right prism is the product of the perimeter of the base and the height. Remember, product means to multiply, so we're multiplying the perimeter of the base, which is this blue right here, the perimeter of the base, and the height of the pyramid. So that means this P stands for perimeter of the base, and the H stands for height of prism. We could have used this formula on all of those problems that we just did, and in fact, we'll go back and look at that in just a minute and how that would work out with those other examples that we did in the earlier video. The second part of theorem 11.1 is the surface area of a right prism is the sum of the lateral area and the areas of the two bases. We already know that. We've been using that formula many, many times. But then you could go ahead and say surface area is then, since lateral area is the perimeter of the base times the height, then instead of lateral area, we could put PH, and then still plus 2 times, and then remember that capital B stands for area of the base. So let's go back and look at some other examples that we did in the earlier videos and test out this new formula, lateral area equals perimeter of the base times the height, because I think this formula will probably make finding surface area a little bit easier. All right, looking at this problem here, we found the lateral area. It was 432 meters squared. So let's see if we can use our new formula and get the same answer. Lateral area equals perimeter of the base times the height. In this case, your bases are these regular hexagons. So if you're going to find the the perimeter of a regular polygon, all you need to do is take the number of sides, 6, times the length of each side, 6. 6 times 6 is 36. So the perimeter of the base is 36 meters times the height of the prism, which is the altitude here, or the edge of your lateral faces, and they're all 12, so the height is 12 meters. When you multiply 36 meters times 12 meters, you end up with a lateral area of 432 meters squared, which is the same thing we got when we worked it the other way, finding the area of each rectangle and multiplying it times the number of rectangles. 6 times 6 is 36, times 12 is 432. Let's try it on another shape. We can use this triangular prism here to use that same formula. Lateral area equals perimeter of the base times the height. So lateral area is the bases in this case, those were those triangles. So if we're going to find the perimeter of the triangle, all we need to do is add up all the sides. 5 plus 5 is 10, plus 6 is 16 centimeters, times the height of the prism, which is this 12 centimeters here. It's that perpendicular edge that connects the two bases. So it's 12 centimeters. And if we multiply 16 centimeters times 12 centimeters, we end up with 192 centimeters squared, which is the same thing we got earlier when we used our other way to find lateral area, which was finding the sum of each lateral face and adding them all together. 60 plus 60 plus 72 gave us 192, and it gave us 192 here as well. Again, if we used it here, we would see the same thing, and so I think you get the point. Lateral area is the perimeter of the base times the height of the prism, and we're going to use that also on our second section, or our second part of this section, which is all about cylinders. Now cylinders, they're like a prism because they have two congruent parallel bases. What is special about cylinders is that those two congruent parallel bases are always circles. The altitude of a cylinder is the same as the altitude of a prism, which is just that perpendicular segment that joins the planes of the bases. So here, altitude, altitude. It's that perpendicular segment that joins the planes of the bases. The height is the length of an altitude. So an altitude and the height is the same thing. So, and once you know where your altitude is, you know that that is your height. The lateral area is just like the lateral area of a prism. It's the area of the rectangle after the cylinder has been, quote unquote, unrolled. So if you think of a can that has a label on it, and you unrolled that label, it would end up looking like a rectangle. So the lateral area would be the area of that rectangle. Finally, we have surface area, and surface area you find the same way you find the surface area of a prism, and that is to take the sum of the lateral area and the areas of the two circular bases. So it's the same formula. Surface area equals lateral area plus 2 times the area of the base. So we can see down here we've unrolled the cylinder. We've taken the label off the cylinder. We can pretend it's some Campbell's soup. Campbell's soup. And we've taken the label off, and here are all our nutritional facts here. And if we were to find the area of this rectangle here, we could find the lateral area using that same formula that we just talked about, which is the perimeter of the base times the height. Well, the perimeter of the base in this case, since the base is a circle, we don't call it perimeter, we call it circumference. And if you were to find the circumference of this base, we know that circumference is 2 pi times radius. So that means the perimeter of the base is 2 pi r. So that means the length of your rectangle is 2 pi r. Again, imagine that this is, the label is wrapped back around your cylinder, and you'd see that from here all the way back around to here, or from here all the way back to here, it would just be 2 pi r. It would be the same as the circumference of your base. And you multiply that times your height, and you end up with the area for your rectangle, or your lateral area. And that would just be the length times the width of a rectangle. So that means that our lateral area formula for a cylinder ends up being lateral area equals, instead of perimeter, it's circumference. Circumference is 2 pi r times the height, which is the height right here. Or lateral area equals, instead of 2, we would do pi times the diameter times the height, because circumference can also be pi times diameter. So we can use either one of those for the perimeter and then also times the height. That means your surface area formula ends up being surface area equals, instead of lateral area, we do 2 pi r times height, that's what we found right down here, plus 2 times the area of the base. Now how do you find the area of a circle? Well, that's just pi r squared, so we just put in pi r squared. And there's your formula for the surface area of any cylinder. Let's put that into terms of your theorems. It says the lateral area of a right cylinder is the product, meaning multiply, of the circumference of the base and the height of a cylinder. This is exactly what we just talked about. We just talked about it and kind of explained it a little more in depth. But here are those two formulas again for lateral area. The surface area of a right cylinder is the sum of the lateral area and the areas of the two bases. It's the exact same as a prism. So that base formula is still the same. All we did is we took a one-step formula. It's a little more detailed here, and this is the one you would use for a cylinder. 2 pi r times height plus 2 pi r squared. Now let's go ahead and look at an example. This is example 3. The radius of the base of a cylinder is 6 feet, and its height is 9 feet. Find its surface area in terms of pi. Let me go ahead and highlight what's important here. We know the radius is 6 feet. We know that the height is 9 feet, and it's also important to note that it is a cylinder. Now you could go ahead and draw your picture here, but before I do that, I want to write my formula because I may not need a picture after I write my formula. So I'll start with my base formula. Surface area equals lateral area plus 2 times the area of the base. Now let's get a little more detailed. I know that surface area is, now lateral area, we just found out a little earlier on in this video that lateral area is the same as the perimeter of the base times the height of the prism plus 2 times the area of the base. Now I'm going to make it specific for cylinders. Surface area equals perimeter of the base we found out is circumference, which is 2 pi r, times the height plus 2 times the area of the base, and the area of a circle is pi r squared. Now let's check to see if in our problem they've given us the information we need. So we know what pi is already. It's a fixed number. The radius we see here, radius is 6, and the height is 9. So we have all the information we need. There's really no reason to draw the picture. All we need to do is take these numbers and plug them in. Surface area equals 2 pi times radius, you'll note, is 6 feet, times height, which is 9 feet, plus 2 times pi times radius is 6 feet squared. Now we'll go through and simplify this. 6 feet times 9 feet is 54 feet squared. 54 feet squared times 2 is 108 feet. Well, actually, we'll put our pi in there. Sorry about that. We need to put our pi in there before we put our units. 108 pi feet squared plus 2 times pi times 6 feet squared. 6 feet squared is 36 feet squared times 2, which is 72 pi feet squared. And I'm leaving that pi because it asks us to leave it in terms of pi. So finally, the surface area is, now we combine these together, 108 pi feet squared plus 72 pi feet squared. We end up with 180 pi feet squared. And there's our surface area. Let's try one more. Quick check 3. And we do it the exact same way. They've given us the information we need, write down our formula, plug in the numbers. Surface area, cylinder, with a height of 10 centimeters and a radius of 10 centimeters, and they want it in terms of pi again. So again, I'll start with my surface area. Surface area equals lateral area plus 2 times the area of the base. So surface area equals perimeter of the base times the height plus 2 times the area of the base. So surface area equals perimeter of the base, which we found out earlier was 2 pi r times height plus 2 times the area of the base, which is pi r squared, since both the bases are circles. Finally, I can plug in my numbers. Surface area equals 2 pi times radius here is 10 centimeters times the height, which is also 10 centimeters, plus 2 pi times the radius squared. Radius is 10 centimeters squared. Now we need to simplify. Surface area equals 10 centimeters times 10 centimeters, 100 centimeters squared, times 2, 200 centimeters squared, times pi, 200 pi centimeters squared, plus 2 times pi times 10 centimeters squared. 10 centimeters squared is 100 centimeters squared, times 2, 200 centimeters squared, times pi, 200 pi centimeters squared. Finally, we need to combine like terms. We need to add these two together. 200 pi centimeters squared plus 200 pi centimeters squared, 400 pi centimeters squared. Now, both of these problems were fairly simple. They gave us everything we needed. What if, however, they had given us the diameter? Let's say they had told us the diameter was 20 centimeters. Simply remember that radius is always half of that, and radius is 10 centimeters. Just make sure you're paying attention that if they give you diameter, you have to cut it in half in order to get the radius to plug it into your formula. All right, this will do it for example 3, and we will pick back up on the next video with example 4.